Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who hold Iraqi Dinar, today's developments are particularly significant and warrant your close attention as they may influence how you prepare moving forward. What we are seeing right now is the reporting of contract rates for the Iraqi Dinar on internal bank screens, an operational signal that many view as one of the most concrete indicators in recent years that the mechanisms supporting any potential revaluation are transitioning from theoretical planning into active practical testing. This single development suggests that the complex financial systems required to manage such an event are being moved from a design phase into a live operational environment, where actual processes can be validated and refined before any broader public actions are taken. In this detailed report, we will walk through exactly what the appearance of these contract rates signifies from a technical and procedural standpoint, how banking institutions utilize such rates within their internal frameworks, the critical role of liquidity verification in this process, and the practical, actionable steps that holders can take at this juncture to ensure they are organized and ready for any future official announcements. Staying through this entire update is advisable, as we will break down each component of this process into clear sequential steps, using straightforward language free of industry jargon or speculative spin, with the goal of providing you with a factual understanding of what is occurring behind the scenes. This knowledge is intended to help you understand what to expect and how to methodically arrange your affairs, so that if this operational phase continues to advance, you can treat this information as a practical bulletin, allowing you to follow official instructions accurately when they are eventually released. The presence of contract rates on bank systems points directly to the testing and activation of back-end financial infrastructure, and comprehending the flow of these operations can significantly aid in avoiding procedural missteps. We will explore the likely sequence of events that typically follows such a development, including the various checks that banks must perform, what the concept of private or early access might entail, and how any future global participation could be structured and rolled out in stages. All of this will be delivered in a steady, factual manner aimed at providing you with a solid foundation of information to support your own decisions, based strictly on official procedures and announcements. The first and perhaps most crucial concept to grasp is the specific meaning behind contract rates appearing on banking screens. It is essential to clarify that this does not automatically signify that a new public exchange rate, which many have anticipated, has been finalized or publicly announced. Rather, it indicates that within banking software and internal networks, systems are now capable of displaying a live, contractual figure for transactions involving the dinar. This operational shift is substantial because banks rely on internal rate grids to manage currency exchanges, document the financial details of transactions, and calculate necessary liquidity requirements. When these internal grids begin to show a contractual value for a specific currency, it signals that the foundational back-end infrastructure, including intrabank ledgers, verification protocols, and settlement pathways, has been configured to reference, record, and process transactions using that specific rate. The observation of contract values within these systems often represents the first tangible movement from abstract discussion into practical application. It marks the difference between formulating a plan and actually running the software and communication protocols required to execute and settle a trade. This is a primary reason why many observers who monitor these technical developments consider the presence of contract rates in active bank workflows to be a major operational milestone, denoting a new phase of readiness. As we delve deeper into this subject, it is important to keep in mind that behind a single screen displaying a rate exists an extensive chain of technical and compliance procedures. These steps are meticulously designed to ensure that any future currency conversions, should they be authorized, are secure, transparent, and fully auditable by the relevant financial authorities. Each step in this chain serves a specific purpose in safeguarding the integrity of the financial system and the assets of individual holders. Next, we should examine why the appearance of contract rates on screens is interpreted as a signal of operational readiness for financial institutions. Banks do not simply activate a new function for a currency without extensive internal validation. This process involves confirming liquidity, testing settlement processes with counterparties, training relevant staff, and ensuring that all anti-fraud and regulatory compliance tools are functioning as intended. The fact that contract rates are visible within a system typically suggests that many of these internal validation checks have progressed to an advanced stage. It implies that software integrations between different banking platforms, confirmations from correspondent banks, and the logging mechanisms for transactions are either undergoing final tests or already live in a controlled setting. This also indicates that participating commercial banks and the central bank are likely running parallel systems to confirm values and procedures before any public announcements are made. Operational readiness, in this context, does not equate to immediate public exchange windows being available to all holders. Instead, it means the institutions responsible for handling conversions are demonstrating in a controlled environment that they possess the technical capability to process such transactions securely. This phase of readiness is crucial as it reduces the risk of technical failures or systemic issues when more participants are eventually brought into the process. For individual holders, this operational groundwork means that if and when official channels do open for access, the underlying systems are more likely to function as intended, leading to potentially smoother authentication processes, more reliable fund allocation, and greater transparency throughout the entire transaction record. A key piece of this operational puzzle is liquidity verification, which deserves a clear and thorough explanation. Before any significant volume of currency conversions could be authorized, participating banks must confirm that they possess, or have access to, the corresponding funds or lines of credit necessary to settle these transactions. Liquidity verification is a fundamental safeguard. It ensures that every legitimate conversion request can be honored without destabilizing the financial institution or the broader banking system. The appearance of contract rates on internal screens often accompanies or follows rigorous liquidity stress tests and reserve checks conducted by these institutions. For holders, this aspect of the process can be seen as a reassuring development. It suggests that banks displaying these rates have likely completed a portion of the essential financial vetting that prevents failed settlements and protects all parties involved. It further indicates that institutions are preparing to support not just small, isolated exchanges but potentially larger, verified transactions as well, should the need arise. However, it is vital not to confuse liquidity verification with a guarantee of a public exchange window. It is a necessary operational step that makes any future public conversion logistically possible in a controlled and secure manner, but it does not dictate the timing or terms of such an event. The topic of timing is inevitably raised by such developments and is worth addressing directly. When internal bank systems begin to display contract rates, that moment is usually the result of months or even years of preparatory work. This work encompasses policy design, platform development, compliance regulation updates, and extensive staff training. The timing of this technical milestone can also reflect a deliberate phased rollout strategy where verified or private access is tested with a limited group first, before any consideration of broader public access for holders. This approach implies that the subsequent steps are likely to be cautious and incremental, potentially involving limited early tests, targeted confirmations with specific entities, and then a gradual scaling of access. It is also plausible that regulators will choose to maintain tight control over each step to minimize potential disruption to financial markets. Therefore, while the internal display of contract rates is an important technical signal, it is only one part of a longer sequence of events. It would be a mistake to interpret this display as an immediate public invitation to exchange currency without following explicit official instructions from the authorized institutions. Let us now turn to the practical side of preparation for those holding Dinar notes. At this moment, the first and most fundamental task is organization. You should carefully sort your banknotes by DE nomination and inspect serial numbers thoroughly, while also confirming the physical condition of each bill. Financial institutions will require clear, legible, and undamaged notes for verification purposes, and having them pre-sorted can expedite any future processes. The second step involves gathering all necessary identification and supporting documentation. This typically includes a valid passport, proof of ownership for the notes, any historical transaction records, and any certificates of authenticity that may be applicable to your situation. Third, it is prudent to prepare records that demonstrate where the notes have been held and for what duration, as authentication teams may examine provenance to help prevent fraud and ensure compliance with regulations. Finally, consider your arrangements for secure storage and create comprehensive documentation backups. This can include photographs, scanned images, and detailed spreadsheets that record serial numbers and total amounts. Being thoroughly organized will make any future interaction with financial institutions, whether in a private or public exchange process, significantly smoother and reduce the chance of delays when verification efforts begin in earnest. Understanding the typical operational flow used by banks is essential, so you can follow instructions precisely when the time comes. Here is a simplified step-by-step outline of what institutions generally do once operational procedures are initiated. The first step is note verification, which involves the physical authentication of each banknote and the matching of serial numbers against internal databases or watch lists. The second step is holder authentication, where your identity and legal ownership of the notes are verified through your presented ID and paperwork. The third step is transaction processing, where the conversion details are entered into e-bank's ledger system and the contract rate is applied. The final step is fund allocation, where the converted funds are transferred or credited to an account, according to the agreed protocol. Each of these steps incorporates multiple controls designed to prevent fraud, ensure regulatory compliance, and create a clear audit trail. Earlier phases of this flow may be conducted internally or with limited third-party oversight to stress test the system under controlled conditions. Once these internal runs are validated as successful and secure, banks can then methodically broaden access to more participants. The clearer your understanding of this flow is before any official instructions are issued, the less likely you are to make procedural errors during an actual exchange event. Security and compliance are non-negotiable elements in this entire process and deserve particular emphasis. Anytime a financial system becomes operational for real transactions, institutions ramp up their monitoring capabilities to detect irregularities, prevent fraud, and mitigate money laundering risks. This heightened vigilance includes logging every transaction in detail, tracking the serial numbers of banknotes involved, and strictly enforcing holder authentication rules. For holders, this framework is both protective and restrictive. It is protective because its core aim is to prevent bad actors from exploiting the system and to ensure that legitimate conversions are processed safely. It is restrictive because these necessary compliance checks can add time to the process and require the submission of extensive documentation. It is important to understand that these security protocols are designed to make the process safe for all legitimate participants, even if they feel burdensome at times. The guidance here is to follow bank directions exactly, keep all requested documents in perfect order, and be prepared for careful scrutiny of both your banknotes and your identity. A question many viewers are asking at this point concerns the implications for the specific exchange rates. The operational reality is that the display of contract rates on bank screens demonstrates that systems can reference and apply a contractual figure in real time. The actual numerical values used in these internal tests may vary across different banking channels, transaction types, or counterparties, and they may be adjusted as liquidity is allocated and verified. The critical point at this stage is functionality, not the precise number displayed during these internal tests. The technical ability to present a contract rate, lock it into a ledger, and process a settlement based on that figure is far more consequential from an operational standpoint than any single number displayed in an early controlled environment. For holders, the practical takeaway should be a focus on preparedness and understanding the process, rather than attempting to chase or speculate on an exact figure seen in an internal test. The international implications of these domestic operational steps are significant and warrant careful consideration. When contract rates begin to appear in the internal systems of Iraqi banks, global financial institutions and correspondent banks take notice. This is because cross-border liquidity, international banking relationships, and global settlement rails must be prepared to manage any resulting transactions. International holders may eventually gain access under controlled, verified protocols once domestic systems demonstrate stability and compliance with international standards. Global participation, if it occurs, will likely be phased and tightly linked to compliance checks that reassure correspondent banks and regulatory authorities in various jurisdictions. It is important to remember that managing foreign exchange transactions at a large scale is an international exercise involving complex reconciliation across borders, settlements in correspondent accounts, and adherence to global anti-money laundering standards, all of which require considerable time, coordination, and testing. The psychological dimension of such large-scale financial operations is another factor that cannot be ignored, especially in an environment long driven by expectation and speculation. For years, holders of the dinar have navigated a landscape filled with rumors, speculation, and partial signals. The emergence of tangible operational signals like contract rates on internal screens can serve as a powerful psychological milestone. It provides validation that technical systems are being actively used and that institutional actors are moving the process forward in a concrete way. However, psychological reactions can also generate considerable noise, including intensified social media buzz, unofficial claims, and widespread misunderstandings. It is crucial to maintain focus on official instructions and documented operational steps, rather than on social media chatter. This disciplined approach will reduce the chance of acting on false or premature information, which could lead to errors or financial losses. It is reasonable to expect any further developments to follow a pattern of phased rollouts and potentially private access windows. Large-scale financial implementations rarely open to the entire public simultaneously. A more common approach is for financial institutions to run controlled tests, allow a small group of verified participants to engage during private windows, and then expand access gradually based on the results. Private or early access periods help banks and regulators identify technical edge cases, fix any integration issues, and confirm liquidity adequacy before opening the system to broader participation. If you are part of a verified group, such as certain institutional holders, you may receive an early opportunity to participate, but this will come with strict compliance and detailed verification steps. If you are a general holder, the imperative remains to prepare your documentation and stay ready for public instructions when they are officially issued. Here is a practical checklist for holders to consider following immediately. First, organize your banknotes by denomination and serial number, creating a clear inventory. Second, create digital backups of your identification and all relevant ownership documents, storing them securely. Third, ensure your physical notes are kept in a trusted, insured location such as a safety deposit box. Fourth, avoid sharing sensitive images of your banknotes or documentation on public platforms, as this can increase your risk of fraud. Fifth, compile a contact list of verified bank numbers and official communication channels that you can use to check for legitimate updates. Minimizing exposure to scams is absolutely crucial during periods of heightened anticipation. Bad actors will inevitably attempt to exploit confusion and hope. Therefore, you must always confirm any instructions through official bank communications, and you should never hand over notes or sensitive documentation to unverified intermediaries or third parties who make unsolicited contact. Let's briefly consider a few possible scenarios and how to respond appropriately. In Scenario 1, internal tests continue and expand, but no public exchange is announced yet. In this case, you should maintain your organizational efforts, keep your documentation ready, and monitor only verified official channels for updates. In Scenario 2, private verified access begins for a select group. If you are included, you should follow the bank's procedural checklist meticulously, attend any required appointments, and expect a thorough authentication process. In Scenario 3, a broad public exchange window is officially opened. Your response should be to double-check the announcement via official sources, remain patient during what could be lengthy verification queues, and expect comprehensive compliance checks. In Scenario 4, authorities announce a temporary pause for additional testing or adjustments. The appropriate response is to remain calm, keep your records updated, and avoid taking any rumor-driven actions. In every conceivable scenario, adhering to official steps and maintaining organization is the most reliable and secure approach. We must emphasize again the importance of avoiding scams and misinformation as these operational signals circulate more widely. Fraudulent actors may create fake application forms, post false bank contact details, or make promises of guaranteed fast-track conversions in exchange for a fee. Be extremely wary of anyone who asks for an upfront payment to secure early access or who requests the private transfer of your notes without providing formal, verifiable bank documentation. Legitimate financial institutions will not request unusual fees outside their publicly stated schedules, nor will they ask you to transfer funds or notes to personal accounts. If an offer from an intermediary or service sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. Always verify information through contact points listed on the official websites of the banks involved, and avoid paying any third parties for unverified promises. Your communication and verification channels should be your primary lifeline to accurate information. Establish a small, trusted set of verified sources, such as official bank websites, verified bank hotlines, and official public communications from the central bank. Avoid spreading or acting upon unverified screenshots or hearsay. When in doubt, contact the bank directly using contact details obtained from their official site or a trusted branch office. It is also wise to keep copies of any official communication you receive, and to record details of any conversations you have, including the name of the representative, the date, time, and any reference numbers provided. These records can be invaluable if you need to resolve an issue or confirm transaction details at a later date. For international holders, there are several special considerations to keep in mind. Cross-border verification processes can require additional documentation, such as proof of citizenship, notarized affidavits, and coordination with international correspondent banks. Large-scale currency movements may also trigger additional compliance steps tied to international anti-money laundering rules and various national reporting requirements. Be prepared for the possibility of added paperwork and procedural steps. If you choose to engage a legal or financial advisor for guidance, select someone with proven verifiable experience in cross-border currency transactions and international finance. Always confirm that any advisor is properly licensed and that you receive clear, written terms of engagement before proceeding. Operational transparency is a recurring and important theme in such processes and should be highlighted. Systems that meticulously log every transaction, authenticate every banknote, and employ rigorous, auditable checks help to create public confidence and institutional trust. When contract rates progress from internal tests to broader availability, it is likely that banks will publicly highlight the audit trails, verification processes, and compliance measures they have implemented. This transparency serves to reduce uncertainty and build trust among holders and international counterparties alike. If banks publish operational guidelines or detailed FAQs, you should read them carefully and save copies for your personal records, as they will serve as your primary reference. Let us return to the topic of timing sensitivity and the necessity for patience. While the appearance of contract rates on internal screens is significant news for holders, it is fundamentally a highly controlled operational step within a larger managed process. Regulators and banks often employ staged timelines to ensure minimal market disruption and to allow adequate time for adjustments and fixes. Impatience, or attempts to force an exchange through unofficial or unverified channels, can lead to significant delays, financial loss, or even legal complications. The best position for any holder is one of meticulous preparation combined with disciplined patience. Have your documentation in order, follow official announcements closely, and be prepared to act swiftly and correctly only when verified channels formally invite participation. It is also useful to consider the broader economic context surrounding such developments. Any change to a national currency system, even when managed through a controlled operational rollout, interacts with wider factors like fiscal policy, foreign reserve management, and macroeconomic stability. The banks and central authorities overseeing this process are acutely aware of these dynamics, which is a primary reason they proceed with caution, implementing staged operations and rigorous liquidity verification. Large-scale conversions require a careful balancing of reserves, a focus on maintaining overall market stability, and ensuring domestic economic continuity. Holders should understand that these broader macroeconomic factors will influence the pace, scale, and structure of any future public access phase. Another important area for consideration involves taxes, legal issues, and reporting obligations. Should conversions occur, there may be tax implications depending on your country of residence and its specific laws regarding foreign exchange gains or capital gains. It is strongly recommended that you consult a qualified tax advisor in your jurisdiction before making any decisions that could trigger reporting obligations or tax liabilities. Additionally, be aware of legal requirements in your nation. Some countries mandate formal declarations for large cross-border transfers or currency conversions. Do not assume that conversion proceeds are automatically tax-free or exempt from reporting. Obtaining professional guidance from a local expert is a prudent step if you anticipate receiving significant funds from such a transaction. Now, let us discuss the matter of emotional management, which is more important than many realize. After a prolonged period of waiting, an operational signal like the appearance of contract rates can understandably create excitement, anxiety, and a sense of pressure to act. It is vital to step back from the emotional response and focus on a checklist of verifiable facts. Then, proceed in a methodical, deliberate manner. Impulsive actions driven by excitement or fear can easily lead to mistakes or falling victim to sophisticated traps. Strive to keep calm, stick rigidly to the official steps as they are announced, and rely on your clear documentation. If you have trusted financial or legal advisors, consulting them before making any major decisions is a wise course of action. As we approach the conclusion of this report, here are the key actions you should aim to have completed by now. Your Dinar notes should be organized and fully documented. Your identification and proof of ownership records should be digitized and backed up in a secure manner. You should have compiled a short list of verified bank contact points and official channels for information. You should have familiarized yourself with basic compliance expectations and understand the importance of avoiding unverified intermediaries. Finally, you should be emotionally prepared to act in a disciplined way when official instructions arrive. Completing these preparatory steps now will pay considerable dividends if private or public access windows open in the near or medium term. Finally, it is critical to maintain a balanced perspective. The appearance of contract rates on bank screens is indeed an important operational milestone, possibly the clearest technical signal many holders have observed in years. However, it is one step within a broader, carefully sequenced process. It indicates that the relevant systems are being exercised and that operational checks, including liquidity verification, staff training, and compliance integrations, have reached advanced stages. Your course of action should be to continue monitoring only verified channels, MA, Maintain your organizational systems and resist the temptation to act on unverified claims. Preparation, patience, and strict adherence to official procedures will protect your interests and help ensure a smooth experience should broader access be authorized in the future. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay organized, and if you found this factual update useful, feel free to like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you do not miss future reports based on verified developments. We will return with further updates as new official steps are announced through proper channels.